8 terrifying archaeological discoveries hidden beneath the earth that changed human history. Hello and welcome to the Ancient History channel. Dear friends, archaeology is not simply a journey of searching for ancient objects or forgotten ruins buried by time. It is more like a conversation with the past, where every layer of soil uncovered preserves traces of a civilization, a person, or an event that took place hundreds or even thousands of years ago. From nothing more than a broken piece of pottery, an old ring, or a skeleton lying silently beneath the earth, scientists can piece together an entire historical story that once seemed lost forever. However, what makes archaeology truly fascinating is that it does not always bring us beautiful discoveries or glittering treasures like those shown in movies. Some excavations have left the entire scientific community stunned when researchers encountered unusual graves, skeletons with mysterious marks, or ancient artifacts whose secrets still remain unexplained to this day. Each discovery not only reveals how people lived in the past, but also raises countless new questions, forcing us to view history from a completely different perspective. Just imagine this. What if, beneath the very ground we stand on today, there are still secrets waiting to be discovered? It could be a lost king forgotten for centuries, the burial site of powerful figures from the past, or skeletons telling a tragic story that was never recorded in history. With just one carefully timed excavation, those hidden secrets can be brought back into the light after hundreds or even thousands of years of silence. And in today's video, we will explore 8 terrifying archaeological discoveries hidden beneath the earth that shocked human history. From skeletons holding mysteries that remain unsolved, to strange burial sites that forced scientists to spend years searching for answers, and unique artifacts that changed our understanding of ancient civilizations, each story is a fascinating piece of the past. And who knows, the final discovery might completely change the way you see history forever. So, are you ready to join me on this incredible journey of exploration? If so, let's begin right now. The remains of England's King Richard III, beneath a parking lot for over 500 years. If someone told you that the body of an English king had been buried beneath an ordinary parking lot for more than 500 years, would you believe them? Probably not. In fact, many people would assume it was nothing more than a fictional story or the plot of a mystery movie. Yet the unbelievable turned out to be true, and it happened in the city of Leicester, England. For more than 5 centuries, no one knew the exact resting place of King Richard III, the last monarch of the Plantagenet dynasty. Then, in 2012, archaeologists began excavating beneath a parking lot and uncovered a skeleton that would later become one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 21st century. When the remains were first unearthed, experts could only suspect that they belonged to Richard III, based on the excavation site and a few initial physical characteristics. But in archaeology, suspicion alone is never enough. For history to accept such a claim, every conclusion must be supported by solid scientific evidence. That was when a groundbreaking DNA investigation began. The research team, led by geneticist Tuuri King of the University of Leicester, extracted DNA from the skeleton and compared it with DNA from living descendants of King Richard III. After a series of highly complex analyses, the final results stunned the world. According to Tuuri King, there was a 99.999% probability that the remains were indeed those of King Richard III. At that point, there was virtually no room for doubt. This case is now considered one of the oldest historical mysteries ever solved using modern genetic science, revealing the identity of a king who died more than 500 years ago. What excited scientists even more, however, was that identifying the remains was only the beginning. The DNA also allowed researchers to reconstruct part of the king's true appearance. Their analysis suggested that Richard III most likely had blue eyes and that his hair was blonde during childhood before gradually darkening as he grew older. At this point, many people naturally wonder whether the portraits of Richard III that have survived for centuries actually reflect what he really looked like. To answer that question, researchers compared the DNA findings with the earliest portraits painted during Richard III's lifetime. Surprisingly, the details matched remarkably well. In these early paintings, the king is depicted with light brown hair and blue eyes, closely aligning with the genetic evidence. This suggests that the historical portraits, which have long been the subject of debate, may actually be far more accurate than many people once believed. However, the DNA investigation also unexpectedly uncovered an entirely new mystery. When researchers expanded their genetic comparisons to include the remains of nobles and relatives from Richard III's paternal family line, they discovered several genetic inconsistencies. The findings immediately raised questions about the English royal family tree. It suggested that, at some point in history, there may have been unexpected breaks in the paternal lineage, or that some of Richard III's successors may not have been biologically related in the way historical records had long claimed. Although scientists have not reached a final conclusion, this discovery remains one of the most debated issues arising from the excavation. The skeleton also revealed the king's tragic final moments. According to recently published research, King Richard III suffered an extremely violent death. Examination of the remains revealed dozens of injuries, many of them severe. Even more remarkably, experts identified several wounds that had been inflicted after he had already died, indicating that his body was likely treated with great brutality following the battle. These findings closely match historical accounts. According to historical records, King Richard III was killed during the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, the famous conflict that brought the Plantagenet dynasty to an end and marked the beginning of Tudor rule. After the king's death, the location of his burial was gradually forgotten over the centuries until his remains were finally rediscovered beneath a parking lot in Leicester, England, more than half a millennium later. Perhaps what makes this story so fascinating is not simply the discovery of an ancient skeleton, but the way modern science gradually unraveled a mystery that had remained hidden for more than 500 years. From a nameless set of bones buried beneath the ground, experts were able to confirm the king's identity, reconstruct his eye and hair color, determine how he died, and even uncover new questions about the lineage of England's royal family. It just goes to show that history's greatest secrets are not always hidden inside magnificent palaces or grand royal tombs. Sometimes they lie quietly beneath the most ordinary places imaginable, waiting for someone to uncover them. And that is exactly what makes the discovery in Leicester one of the most astonishing archaeological finds of the modern era. Shattered skeletons discovered in an ancient English village. What do you think is more terrifying than an ancient cemetery? If you ask me, it's probably a cemetery where most of the skeletons inside have been deliberately smashed, chopped into pieces, and even burned. Sounds like a brutal ritual from a medieval horror movie, doesn't it? Unfortunately, this discovery is completely real. It was made in the village of Warham Percy in North Yorkshire, England. And what's even more unsettling is that the people responsible were most likely not invading armies or foreign enemies, but the villagers themselves. So what could have driven them to treat their dead in such a horrifying way? Were they trying to hide some terrible secret? Or did they truly believe the dead could come back to life? Let's find out. The story began when archaeologists carried out excavations at Warham Percy, one of the best preserved medieval villages in England. The village was once a thriving and densely populated community, but by the 16th century, it had been completely abandoned, leaving behind countless unanswered questions. During a recent excavation, researchers uncovered several graves unlike anything they had expected. Instead of finding intact skeletons, as is normally the case, they repeatedly discovered human remains that had been deliberately broken into numerous pieces. The damage clearly wasn't the result of natural decay or the passage of time. At first, some researchers suggested that these individuals may have been tortured or even cannibalized during a time of famine. However, after extensive analysis, archaeologists completely rejected that theory. What they discovered was even more astonishing. According to the evidence, these skeletons had been intentionally destroyed to prevent the dead from rising from their graves. In other words, the people of medieval Warham Percy appear to have genuinely believed in the existence of the walking dead, what we would call zombies today. The remains date from the 11th through the 14th centuries, indicating that this practice continued for generations rather than being a one-time event. Even more surprising, many of the bones show signs that the bodies may have been burned first, with the remaining bones then deliberately smashed into smaller pieces afterward. Just imagine that for a moment. Burying a loved one is already one of life's most painful rituals. Yet the people of this village went even further. They cremated the bodies and then continued destroying the remaining bones. That alone reveals just how deeply they feared the dead. According to widespread legends in medieval Europe, many people believed that certain individuals could return to the world of the living after death. These restless dead were said to emerge from their graves, wander through villages, spread disease, bring disaster, and attack anyone they encountered. Those believed most likely to return were often people who had committed terrible sins or lived especially dark and immoral lives. It was believed that death alone was not enough to punish them, and unless their bodies were properly dealt with, their spirits would continue to torment the living. Because of this fear, many medieval scholars recorded methods for dealing with these so-called walking dead. Ancient manuscripts describe one of the most common methods as dismembering the body and then placing the remains on a funeral pyre to ensure the dead could never rise again. Remarkably, those historical descriptions closely match the evidence archaeologists uncovered at Warham Percy. To test this theory, a research team from historic England working together with the University of Southampton analyzed 137 skeletons excavated from the village. The results showed that at least 10 skeletons displayed clear evidence of having been deliberately mutilated after death. Many of the bones still bear knife marks, proving that the bodies had been cut apart or dismembered before being placed on the funeral pyre. Meanwhile, isotope analysis of the victims' teeth revealed that most of them were local residents, not outsiders or prisoners, brought to the village. That means the people treated in this horrifying way were most likely neighbors, relatives, or fellow members of the Warham Percy community itself. It seems that fear of supernatural legends was so powerful that it drove ordinary villagers to perform rituals that sound absolutely horrifying today. Warham Percy was once one of the largest and best-preserved medieval villages in England. For more than 60 years, archaeologists have used a wide range of modern technologies to study the site and investigate why the entire village was eventually abandoned. Historical records show that the village flourished between the 12th and 14th centuries, when the Percy family, the Earls of Percy, controlled the surrounding lands. Yet by the 16th century, the village had been completely deserted, leaving behind its mysterious cemeteries and shattered skeletons, discoveries that continue to spark debate among archaeologists to this day. So what do you think? Were these broken skeletons simply the result of medieval superstition? Or did the people of Warham Percy witness something so terrifying that they believed they had no choice but to prevent the dead from ever returning? Let us know what you think in the comments below. We'd love to hear your theories. 7 skeletons and a 1,300-year-old tomb, filled with gold and silver treasures, reveal the secrets of Peru's Wari elite. If a tomb were opened after more than 1,300 years and inside it contained not only gold and silver treasures, but also the remains of powerful individuals, along with countless valuable artifacts, who do you think was buried there? A king? A legendary warrior? Or perhaps a powerful religious leader? All of those possibilities might seem reasonable. However, a recent discovery near the town of Huarmey, north of Peru's capital city Lima, has revealed an answer that is even more surprising. Because what archaeologists uncovered here has opened a completely new perspective on the Wari civilization, an empire that flourished in Peru from around 500 to 1000 AD, long before the rise of the Inca Empire. According to information recently reported by Live Science, archaeologists conducted excavations at an ancient cemetery located near the town of Huarmey. During their research, they discovered an elaborately constructed tomb dating back approximately 1,300 years. From the moment they opened the entrance, experts realized that this was not an ordinary burial site. Inside were 7 skeletons, along with numerous precious artifacts that had been remarkably preserved after more than a millennium. The central figure in the tomb was a man of extremely high status, whom archaeologists named the Lord of Huarmey. Surrounding him were 6 other individuals, forming a rare and unusual burial arrangement. According to the Department of Archaeology at the University of Warsaw in Poland, the 6 other individuals included 4 adults, most likely 2 men and 2 women, along with 3 individuals who may have been teenagers. Some of the remains are even believed to have originally been buried elsewhere before being moved and reburied inside this tomb. This suggests that those buried here had a very special connection with the central figure. However, what truly amazed archaeologists was not only the skeletons themselves, but also the objects buried alongside them. Almost every individual in the tomb was buried with gold and silver jewelry, as well as bronze tools, knives, axes, finely woven baskets, textiles, basket-making materials, and numerous objects made from wood and leather. Just imagine, after more than 1,300 years, these artifacts still remain detailed enough to tell the story of the people who once lived here. Doesn't that reveal that these individuals were not only wealthy, but also held an extremely important position within Wari society? The large quantity and variety of artifacts discovered at the site led the research team to propose a fascinating theory. According to them, the people resting inside this tomb did not simply belong to the upper class. They may have also been master artisans and highly skilled craftsmen of the Wari civilization. This is something that had never been clearly proven before. Archaeologist Miłosz Giersz from the University of Warsaw, who led the excavation project, stated that this area could be considered a gallery of elite craftsmen within the royal cemetery. He emphasized that this was the first time archaeologists had discovered a burial site belonging to Wari noblemen who were also talented artists and skilled craftspeople. This discovery has changed the way researchers view Wari society. Previously, scholars often believed that the elite class mainly consisted of individuals who controlled political or military power. Even more fascinating is that this tomb was discovered by Miłosz Giersz's team in February, and its location is very close to another famous discovery that once shocked the archaeological world. That discovery was a large tomb found in 2012 by Miłosz Giersz and his wife Patrycja Pszczółka-Giersz, an associate professor at the University of Warsaw. The 2012 tomb contained the remains of 3 powerful women, who archaeologists referred to as the Wari Queens. Not only that, but the tomb also contained 58 additional skeletons, most of whom were women belonging to the noble class. Researchers believe that many of these individuals had also been relocated from other burial sites before being placed here. However, some of the remains belong to lower social classes, and archaeological evidence suggests that they may have been sacrificed to accompany and serve these powerful individuals after death. When these two discoveries are viewed together, the picture of the Wari civilization becomes clearer than ever before. If the 2012 tomb revealed the existence of powerful Wari noblewomen, then the new discovery near Huarmi, Peru, demonstrates that elite men, who were also exceptional artists and master craftsmen, were equally respected and honored with highly elaborate burial ceremonies. After more than 1,300 years, these skeletons and their gold and silver treasures do more than simply reflect the wealth of an ancient civilization. They tell the story of a sophisticated society where talent, status, and power were deeply connected in ways that archaeologists are still working to fully understand to this day. 3,700-year-old Egyptian tomb reveals the tragedy of a mother, a fetus still inside her womb at the time of burial. For thousands of years, archaeologists have excavated countless tombs across Egypt, from massive pyramids to ancient cemeteries hidden deep within the desert. Most burial sites contain only human remains and a few familiar grave goods, offering researchers a glimpse into the lives of people from the distant past. However, a remarkable discovery near the city of Aswan in southern Egypt left the entire archaeological community stunned. Because inside this tomb was not only the skeleton of a young woman, but also a fetus still inside her womb, as if time had frozen that heartbreaking moment for 3,700 years. This discovery is considered one of the rarest cases ever recorded in the history of ancient Egyptian archaeology. This deeply moving find was made during an archaeological project at Qom Ombo, near the city of Aswan, southern Egypt, carried out by an American-Italian archaeological expedition. During the excavation, the research team discovered the tomb of this young woman. And you know what? The moment the remains were brought out for examination, experts noticed an extraordinary detail. The woman was still pregnant and the fetus remained inside her body, positioned with its head facing downward toward the pelvis, exactly the position a baby takes shortly before birth. According to information released by the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities on Facebook, initial analysis showed that the woman died at approximately 25 years old. What particularly caught the researchers' attention was that her pelvic area showed signs of severe imbalance and serious damage. After further examination, they proposed that the woman may have suffered a pelvic fracture that was not treated in time. This injury was likely a major factor that contributed to her death. Meanwhile, studies of the fetus also revealed important information. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities stated that the fetus's development showed that the baby was in the final months of pregnancy and had already turned into the correct head-down position for delivery. This means the mother was only a short time away from giving birth. However, a tragic twist of fate prevented both mother and child from surviving that moment. Not only the skeleton itself, but also the objects buried with the woman helped archaeologists understand more about her life. Dr. Zuhair, a member of the research team, explained that the skeleton had been wrapped in animal hide, with several ancient pottery vessels placed nearby. Among them was an old Egyptian vessel that showed signs of frequent use, along with a black pottery jar polished with red coloring. According to Dr. Zuhair, this type of pottery was commonly used by people living in the region and had a shape very similar to the containers traditionally used by the Nubian people. In addition to the pottery vessels, the tomb also contained numerous beads made from ostrich eggshells, along with other ceramic objects and ancient jars. According to the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities, the large number of unused beads was likely raw material intended for making jewelry. Researchers believe that the woman's family placed all of these beads back into the tomb as a memorial gift for her rather than continuing to use them. This small detail makes the story feel even more personal, as it reflects the love, grief, and remembrance that her family carried for someone who had died thousands of years ago. The tomb was discovered within an ancient cemetery near Aswan, a site that was once used to bury migrants who traveled from the southern desert regions into Egypt between 1750 and 1550 BC. This suggests that the Aswan area was, from a very early period, a place where different communities and cultures interacted and came together. For archaeologists, the extraordinary value of this discovery does not come only from its age or the artifacts found inside. The true significance lies in the fact that the fetus remained preserved inside the mother's body. According to Professor Sandra Wheeler of the University of Central Florida, who spoke with National Geographic, discovering a case like this from such an ancient historical period is extremely rare. She explained that this discovery further supports the idea that childbirth in the ancient world was filled with countless dangers, and women faced serious risks of death throughout pregnancy and during labor. After nearly 3,700 years, the tomb uncovered near Aswan in southern Egypt has not only helped scientists better understand ancient Egyptian medicine, burial traditions, and daily life, but it has also preserved a deeply emotional story about a young mother and her unborn child who never had the chance to take their first breath. Among countless discoveries of gold, mummies, and the treasures of pharaohs, perhaps it is discoveries with such profound human meaning that make history feel the most real. They remind us that although thousands of years separate us from these ancient people, human emotions, the pain of loss, and the love between family members have never truly changed. An ancient discovery, but a heartbreaking story, isn't it? Skeleton. Still wearing intact boots, after 500 years beneath England's River Thames. Dear friends, when people think about archaeological discoveries beneath the River Thames in London, England, many immediately imagine Roman coins, ancient weapons, pottery, or valuable artifacts buried beneath layers of mud for hundreds of years. However, did you know that during a recent excavation, what was brought up from beneath the ground was not a treasure or an ancient artifact like those usually discovered, but rather an almost perfectly preserved human skeleton that was still wearing a pair of tall leather boots after around 500 years. This remarkable discovery was made during the construction of the Super Sewer project along the banks of the River Thames. This massive infrastructure project was designed to improve London's sewage system. As workers dug deep into the muddy layers of soil during construction, archaeologists accompanying the project unexpectedly discovered the skeleton of a man lying beneath the earth. From the very first glance, everyone realized this was an extremely rare discovery. Not only was the skeleton remarkably well preserved, but the victim's tall leather boots were still firmly attached to his feet, something almost unimaginable after approximately 500 years. It was this extraordinary detail that led experts from MoLA, the Museum of London Archaeology, to begin a detailed investigation shortly afterward. According to Beth Richardson, an analyst at MoLA, the leather boots became the key that helped archaeologists gradually reconstruct the story of the man who lived many centuries ago. She explained that simply examining the style, stitching techniques, and materials of the boots could provide a great deal of information about their age as well as the life of their owner. And indeed, based on the characteristics of the boots, researchers determined that the man most likely died sometime during the 15th or 16th century. What surprised them most was that tall leather boots during that period were considered valuable items that not everyone could afford. Therefore, the fact that this man was buried while still wearing his boots was extremely unusual. Think about it. If the boots were so valuable, why did no one take them? Was his death so sudden that nobody had time to remove them? Or was his body quickly swallowed by the mud before anyone could discover him? To answer these questions, experts continued analyzing the location and condition of the skeleton. From there, they began to piece together the final tragic moments of this man's life. The man's body was found lying face down, with one arm stretched behind his head, before quickly becoming covered by a thick layer of mud. According to archaeologist Balcom theory, the man may have been attempting to climb over a wall, but accidentally slipped, fell into a drainage area, and suffocated beneath the mud. The oxygen-poor, muddy environment unintentionally created the perfect conditions to preserve both the skeleton and the leather boots for centuries. But the fascinating discoveries did not stop there. When researchers examined his teeth more closely, they found distinctive patterns of wear. According to them, these marks suggested that the man frequently used his teeth to hold or pull ropes, a habit commonly associated with sailors or fishermen of that era. This discovery perfectly matched the type of tall leather boots he was wearing. These boots were designed to keep the feet dry while walking through water or working along the River Thames, an environment that may have been closely connected to his daily life. Not only were researchers able to identify clues about his occupation, but they also learned more about his health condition. Analysis revealed that the man was no older than 35 years old when he died. However, he suffered from arthritis, most likely as a result of years of heavy physical labor. The repetitive tasks involved in working on the river placed enormous stress on his joints, causing his body to deteriorate while he was still relatively young. This discovery once again highlights why the River Thames is considered one of the greatest archaeological sites in London. Throughout centuries, the river has preserved countless valuable objects beneath its thick layers of mud, including everyday tools, weapons, coins, and traces of many different civilizations. However, finding a nearly intact human skeleton like this case is extremely rare, because most remains have long been destroyed by the river's current or the passage of time. Meanwhile, the approximately 15.5-mile-long super sewer project continued to be developed with the goal of preventing sewage and household waste from flowing directly into the River Thames. By now, the construction project has been completed, but perhaps what few people expected was that it would not only help improve London's environment, but also accidentally open a doorway into the past, revealing a story from more than half a millennium ago. After around 500 years, the unknown man who once lived and worked along the River Thames was finally discovered. Although his identity remains unknown, from only a skeleton, a pair of leather boots, and the marks left on his teeth, archaeologists have been able to gradually reconstruct an entire life story. And that is the true wonder of archaeology, a field where every discovery does not simply help us understand history, but also brings forgotten people back into our world after centuries of silence. Medieval knight's tomb, found beneath an ice cream shop in Poland, shocks archaeologists. If someone told you that a secret more than 700 years old was hidden beneath the floor of an ordinary ice cream shop, many people would probably think it was just a fictional story, wouldn't they? At first, I thought so too. However, what seemed like something that could only happen in an adventure movie actually took place in the city of Gdansk, Poland. While preparing to demolish an old building for renovation, archaeologists discovered a remarkably unusual ancient tomb located directly beneath the floor of a famous ice cream shop. After studying the site, researchers revealed that the person buried there was not an ordinary individual. Instead, the tomb may have belonged to a powerful knight or military commander who lived during one of the most turbulent periods of medieval Europe. The story begins with an ice cream shop called Mish, which had been serving local residents since 1962. For decades, very few people knew that beneath the concrete floor where thousands of customers had once stood in line to buy ice cream, a forgotten piece of history had been hidden for centuries. It was only when the shop moved to a new location and the old building was scheduled for demolition that archaeologists finally had the opportunity to excavate the area. And that excavation led to one of the most remarkable discoveries ever made in Gdansk. Beneath layers of soil, experts uncovered an ancient tomb featuring a remarkable 5-foot-long gravestone carved with extraordinary detail. On the surface of the stone was the image of a warrior wearing armor, holding a shield in one hand and a sword in the other. Even the smallest details of the carving were enough for researchers to recognize that this was not the grave of an ordinary person. In medieval culture, the image of a knight with a sword and shield represented power, bravery, and high social status. But it was not only the artwork that impressed archaeologists. The material used to create the gravestone also attracted significant attention. According to experts, the gravestone was made from limestone quarried on the island of Gotland, Sweden, an island located in the Baltic Sea that was famous throughout medieval Europe for its high-quality limestone. This type of stone was often transported to distant regions to create important buildings or burial monuments for people of high social standing. This suggests that the person buried here must have possessed considerable wealth or held a very influential position in society at that time. When archaeologists opened the tomb, they discovered the remains of a man who had died at around 40 years old. Compared with the living conditions of the Middle Ages, this was considered a relatively long lifespan, as many people during that period died much earlier due to warfare, disease, and limited medical knowledge. Inside the tomb, researchers found no grave goods or personal belongings buried with the individual. However, according to expert Sylvia Krzinska, the absence of burial objects does not reduce the importance of this discovery. She explained that all available evidence, from the location of the tomb, the design of the gravestone, to the material used to create it, indicates that the person buried there belonged to a very high social class. He was likely a knight or military commander, someone who was deeply respected by the community during his lifetime. Think about it. If this person had simply been an ordinary citizen, would anyone have spent a large amount of money transporting stone from Gotland, Sweden, all the way to Gdansk, Poland, and then hired a skilled craftsman to create such an elaborate gravestone? It was these seemingly small details that became important evidence, allowing archaeologists to gradually reconstruct the identity and status of the person who had been buried there. Through their research, experts believe that the tomb dates back to approximately the 13th or 14th century. This was a period when the city of Gdansk experienced many major historical changes. During this time, the region was under the control or influence of the Teutonic Knights, one of the four most powerful military knightly orders in medieval Europe. However, researchers have not ruled out the possibility that the tomb could be even older, perhaps dating back 1 or 2 centuries earlier, during the rule of the Sobieslaw dynasty, a ruling family that controlled this region before the Teutonic Knights expanded their influence. In reality, Gdansk was one of the most strategically important locations along the Baltic Sea. Because of this, the region was constantly contested by different powers throughout the Middle Ages. The Teutonic Knights, local rulers, and various other forces all attempted to control this valuable territory. This historical background makes the identity of the man buried inside the tomb even more mysterious than ever. Today, it is difficult to imagine that beneath a once crowded ice cream shop, there was a hidden trace of a powerful figure who had rested there for more than 700 years. The discovery in Gdansk, Poland, has not only helped archaeologists better understand the history of this region, but has also reminded us once again that the past can sometimes be lying directly beneath our feet. With just one excavation at the right moment, secrets that seemed lost forever can be brought back to life, revealing stories of knights, battles, and a glorious era that has long faded into history. The 2,000-year-old remains of a mother and daughter embracing in an ancient Austrian tomb change our understanding of ancient Roman history. In archaeology, there are some tombs that take scientists decades to uncover the truth behind them. At first glance, they may appear completely ordinary, but the more researchers study them, the more surprising their hidden secrets become. That is exactly the story behind a tomb discovered in the city of Wels, Austria, a place that was once the ancient Roman city of Ovalava. At first, everyone believed that this was simply a double burial dating back to the Middle Ages. However, after more than 20 years of research, modern scientific technology proved that everyone had been mistaken. Not only did scientists determine the true age of the tomb, but they also discovered that the two individuals buried inside were a biological mother and her daughter, creating one of the most touching and rare discoveries connected to ancient Roman history ever recorded in Austria. The story began in 2004, when construction workers were working in an area known as the Eastern Cemetery of the ancient Roman city of Ovalava, now located in the city of Wels, Austria. During excavation work for the building foundation, they unexpectedly discovered a tomb with a very unusual structure. Inside were the remains of 2 people lying in an embrace, and even more remarkably, at least one horse skeleton had also been buried alongside them. From that moment, the unusual burial style immediately puzzled experts. The presence of 2 human skeletons embracing each other together with a horse did not match the common burial practices of the Roman period. Therefore, many researchers initially believed that this was likely a double grave from the Middle Ages, created many centuries after the Roman era. However, the story did not end there. For more than 20 years, the tomb continued to be studied by scientists using increasingly advanced research methods. Eventually, a comprehensive investigation produced results that left the archaeological community deeply surprised. The study was conducted by anthropologist Sylvia Kirchengast and archaeologist Dominik Hagmann from the University of Vienna, Austria. They used the latest techniques in bioarchaeology and genetic archaeology to analyze all of the remains. Instead of relying only on the appearance of the tomb or accompanying artifacts as researchers had done in the past, this time scientists allowed modern technology to reveal the truth. The biggest breakthrough came from radiocarbon dating. The results showed that both human skeletons and the horse remains were approximately 500 years older than researchers had previously believed. Rather than belonging to the Middle Ages, the tomb was actually created between the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD. This means that the burial belonged to the ancient Roman period, when the land that is now Austria was still part of the Roman Empire. But the most emotional discovery came from the analysis of ancient DNA. After multiple examinations, researchers confirmed that the two people buried in the tomb were not a married couple, siblings, or strangers. They were a biological mother and her own daughter. According to the research results, the mother was approximately 40 to 60 years old, while the daughter was around 20 to 25 years old at the time of their deaths. What makes this discovery especially remarkable is that both were buried at the same time, and their embracing positions suggest that this burial ritual carried a deeply meaningful purpose. Speaking about the discovery, Dominik Hagmann, the lead author of the study, explained that the confirmed biological relationship revealed through DNA was what made the research truly extraordinary. This was not simply another archaeological discovery. It also helped scientists better understand family relationships and burial traditions in the ancient Roman period of Central Europe. Alongside the two human remains, the horse skeleton buried with them also provided important information. Archaeological examinations of the horse helped researchers gain a clearer understanding of burial customs between the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD. The practice of burying a horse together with humans suggests that this may have been a special ritual practiced by certain communities living in the region during the Roman era, or it may reflect the social status of the deceased family within Roman society at that time. Have you noticed something? In just over 20 years, advances in science completely changed the way we understand an archaeological discovery. From a tomb that was once believed to belong to the Middle Ages, scientists proved that it was actually nearly 2,000 years old, while also revealing the deeply emotional story of a mother and daughter buried together during the ancient Roman era. That is why, if I say that this discovery in Wels, Austria, has not only helped archaeologists better understand the lives and burial traditions of ancient Romans, but has also reminded us that sometimes the most valuable treasures in archaeology are not gold, silver, or precious artifacts, but the stories of human connection and family bonds, then that would not be an exaggeration, would it? After nearly 2 millennia, the final embrace of this mother and daughter remains preserved beneath the earth, standing as a powerful reminder that no matter how much time passes, the bond between a mother and child remains one of the strongest and most enduring things ever preserved by history. So, we have just explored 8 terrifying archaeological discoveries hidden beneath the earth that have shocked the scientific community and revealed secrets that seem to have been buried by time forever. As you can see, every skeleton, every tomb, and every ancient artifact is a valuable piece of the puzzle that helps us better understand human history. At the same time, these discoveries remind us that beneath the ground, countless mysteries are still waiting to be uncovered. Which discovery impressed you the most or left the strongest impression on you? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you can continue joining ancient history on future journeys of exploration. For now, thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you again soon.